maniac, can't stop to turn around. Broke my sacroiliac, a mid-range migraine, cancer membrane. Sometimes I think I'm going insane. I swear I might hijack a plane. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
Voices Beyond the Wall, we're back in the house. So Eddie, what would you want to say, brother?
The issues at hand with Michelle were quite poignant, and it was based on her experience. She said there was one thing that turned her around that allowed her to realize about the marginalized people. And that was a story she told of a young man who was being harassed by the police officers time and time and time again. And what had happened at this point, his legitimate claim that he was framed and he didn't do what he was happening to do. He just copped out to it and only got a month opposed to getting a lot of time. And she wanted to use this gentleman as a banner to promote their issues. But because he had the felony, they couldn't utilize him. And listening to that story, he had mentioned and said that she was no better than the police officers. And she didn't think anything of it until she heard about the corruption of the police force and everything that the young man told her was true. It was at that point that she took up the torch to do what was needed.
Yeah, because one of the police officers that was involved in the corruption was the same police officer that the young man had
That's
identified had framed him.
That framed him. So it was her story that set forth and catapulted her on this journey to see what she can change with the issues that were at hand for the injustices that are taking place. The idea of not having any self-worth because you come to prison is one of those things that marginalize us from doing the things that are necessary. As Mr. Cumberbatch talked about earlier, he didn't think he was worthy to move at that point. And because we don't think we're worthy, when people want to help us, we don't think we're worthy.
Well said.
And then when people want to help us and then all of a sudden they turn their back on us, at that point we say, I'm not worthy because nobody wants to help me. The only thing that we turn to at that point is helping one another. When we don't feel like we can get any outside help, we utilize the resources that are inside to make sure that we can move ourselves throughout this journey to be a whole people opposed to the broken men that we've come in. So as she continued to speak about that story, continued to speak about how she got to the place that she was at, but most importantly, the compassion that she has and the humility that has taken her forth to write this book. Because she didn't care about waiting for tenure, because they said, once you do this book after you get your tenure, then you can't get tossed aside. No, her journey was larger than who she was. And once again, if we find a purpose that's bigger than who we are and we go forth for it, we know we're people of service. So that's what I got from her as listening, besides plenty of other stuff. So I'm just going to pass it to you at that point.
You know, when Ernest mentioned how she talked about disposable humanity.
Yes, sir.
What resonates with me is how we buy into that. We unwittingly buy into that narrative, that concept of being a person who has no real worth, a throwaway. And so we make choices that reflect that. We make choices that are consistent with that theme, that motif in our life, that I'm worthless, I don't deserve better, so I'm going to live a worthless lifestyle. You know what I mean? Of the very moment a person gets to a point in his journey or her journey where they identify that they have value, when they come to a place of realizing that I have value and I don't deserve being subjected to this kind of lifestyle, then you begin to make choices that reflect not any longer that you're disposable, but now that I'm a person of worth, a purpose, a person that has a value that I might not even understand it all at once, but I know I deserve more than what I have settled for. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think I don't know if it was you or Ernest on one of our shows back talked about settling. Was that you, Ernest? We're talking about people who settle. You know what I'm saying? I forget. We talked about that. How you settle for, you know what I'm saying? That's the kind of life you live. You wind up settling for less than your best. You wind up settling for anything beyond the range of your gift, beyond the range of your potential, beyond the expectations that your parents had for you when they brought you to do. You begin to settle, and before you know it, you find yourself at a dead end, at an impasse. You know what I mean? And when you come to that impasse, that is an opportunity to either reevaluate and implement change, or to simply detonate. You know what I mean? Or impasse people don't handle well. That's why prisons. There's a lot of people in prison that we left behind who are subjected to a heavy regimen of psychotropic drugs or medication. You know what I'm saying? Because they reached the end of the illusion. You know what I mean? And once that illusion is shattered, they confronted with the raw, unmitigated reality of what the kind of choices they made, what it says about them. And that's a dog terrible place to be at. So for me, Michelle Alexandra, she's bigger than life for me, but yet she was so humble and so gracious. You know what I mean? She spoke so down to earth. And she's obviously a person, man, who has a real deep conviction and passion for the issues that affect, and she just made her contribution. And her contribution has become the impetus by which a national discourse on race relations and race problems continues. You know what I'm saying? She put it right, whether people agree with the book or not, it stimulates discourse. You know what I'm saying? And I think that people who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated would need to be part of that national discourse.
Yeah, in the midst of that national discourse, the opportunity for you to open up the evening.
Yes.
You open up the evening, and you open up the evening with such a powerful question to her. And as you had mentioned it before, I'm just going to state what the question was. And the question was the new Jim Crow has been published several years ago. What new lessons, if any, have you learned about American racism since its publication that redefines how you approach this volatile issue? She had to take the question from the backside first.
Mm-hmm. That's what she did. You're right.
And what she did with it, she constructed it in a way which labeled it on and placed it on everybody's shoulders in the audience to pay attention and say, listen, this is a collective effort that needs to be taken care of with this. We put it on the back burner too long. We've been babysitting it and pampering it for too long. We need to identify it and call it for what it is.
Yes.
Because oftentimes we don't want to see it for what it is. I don't, for oftentimes. I just like dealing with folk. When this issue comes up, as volatile as it is, the question set off for the remainder of the evening a tone and temperament that had everyone engaged.
Yes.
So for you to be that thoughtful and precise about what needed to be done and said at that time was quite pertinent to where the talk was going to go on that evening. So great job. I just want to commend you on that.
Thank you, brother. It was definitely an opportunity for me to have front row seat. You know what I'm saying? And be able to ask those kind of questions. Thank you, Ernest. To have front row seat and to be able to, because I remember when I was in prison, I was always thinking, man, I need to be part of this discussion. You know what I mean? And all because you wrote a letter, you made a request, an email request, you know what I'm saying? It opened the door for me to have that opportunity. I'm just amazed at how life happens, how things happen. So let me say that I got some things I'm going to read, but let me just also share some news. The Dutchess County Executive, Marcus J. Molinaro, has established a program called Pathway to Promises, and a change team is part of that. And the whole purpose of the Pathway to Promise is to identify what are the assets between 0 and 19 that a child has in Dutchess County that allows him to do well. And then once we identify that, then we have to identify what are the deficits and gaps that inner city children fall into that don't allow them to perform optimally at every level of life as their white counterparts or more privileged counterparts. And then we have to come up with a framework. We've been given $2 million to do this. Come up with a framework, you know what I'm saying, for implementing programs and safety nets that will allow all children to have the same assets and benefits. So I'm one of 9 members on this team. You know, this happened like 2 weeks ago. There was a press release about it. I'm saying, and I'm glad to be a part of it. We had our first meeting already, and we're having our next meeting on the 14th of March. And I'm reminded. First of all, let me be honest with you. I went to Marcus J. Molinaro's county address. And while I couldn't stay for the whole thing, that was held at the Culinary Institute of America. Have you ever been there, Ernest?
Yeah.
Very, very prestigious environment, right, man? A sprawling campus. Supposed to be one of the best. Supposed to be the best ones, one of the best ones in the country, right? Yeah. So that's where, huh? CIA, yeah, they call it CIA. I thought that was an interesting play on words there, right? But and I heard this county address. I have to be honest with you, man. Politicians don't easily impress me at all. I'm probably too cynical and jaded, same for most of them. But here was a guy, man, who was really seeking to transcend partisan lines, and realizing that that the kids in Dutchess County need a fair shake, and he's the one that took the initiative to do it. Everybody else talking about it, but he did something about it. And I just hope that we can effectively meet the demands. You know, we have a very diverse, gifted, intellectually gifted team. Many who are leaders. Some of them are involved in government. And like the lady of Renee, I forget her last name, but she's the CEO of Astor Children and Family Services, one of the places I was trying to get a job at. You know, and to be part of that team with these kind of people. But I also know that these kind of networking, these kind of involvement, these kind of workings also elevate my profile, you know what I'm saying, and place me in position to be more effective in helping people, and maybe, who knows, even advance my employment opportunities, you know. So let me just read something from his press. He said, in 2017, Dutchess County engaged a nationally renowned public consultant group, Human Services, to assess youth services throughout Dutchess County, both public and private, and create an innovative framework for helping local children reach their potential. Dutchess County will use this framework to compare the county's needs to current activities in the community, helping the county and community better understand the areas and age groups with the most resources, as well as which areas need additional investment. The Change Team, that's the group I'm on, which will meet regularly throughout 2018 and guide a process, consists of Chris Baiano, he's Assistant County Executive, Sabrina Jar Mazuka, Commissioner, Dutchess County Department of Community and Family Services, Mary Ellen Still, Director, the Dutchess County Office of Probation and Community Corrections, Michelle Dancy, Pastor in Christ United Church. By the way, we're the only 2 African Americans that's on the group. You know, Renee Fillet, a PhD, Chief Operating Officer of Astor Services for Families and Children. Michael J. Love, Executive Director of Hudson Valley Community Center. Jessica McGee, Psychologist of Arlington Central School District. Louis McLaughlin, Executive Director of Dutchess Workforce Investment Board and Youth Bureau Coordinating Council Board Member. And Marisol Rodriguez, Executive Director of Literacy Connections of the Hudson Valley. So Dutchess County government annually spends more than $58 million on youth services mandated by the state and federal government. These include significant investments in early education and early intervention. In addition to those mandated costs, the county invests an additional $4 million on youth development discretionary services such as child care, teen parent supports, education, employment, and drug awareness programs. Most of these services are contracted through community agencies. Commissioner Mazuka said, quote, as part of our Path to Promise analysis, we will identify the assets that any child from birth through age 19 need to achieve their full potential as they grow into young adults. Just as importantly, we will determine what gaps exist which may influence the direction of future funding. Completed in December 2017, the initial phase of the Path to Promise involved PCG, that's our Public Consulting Group's extensive assessment of all youth services provided by Dutchess County government, including organizational charts, budgets, performance or outcome reports, as well as interviews with personnel from the various departments that provide youth services, including the Departments of Behavior and Community Health, Probation and Community Corrections, Planning and Development, as well as DCFC. PCG reviewed how the departments share information and collaborate, identified strengths and weaknesses in the current system, as well as duplication or gaps in services. So that's not the whole article, but it's enough to give you an idea of the formidable task that we are confronted with to do within 8 to 10 months. Sounds a bit daunting. Since I'm giving you news, let me also share this, the prison to shelter pipeline, because this affects those in prison. You might want to hear this too, Ernest. This is real serious. Thousands of parolees from upstate prisons return to New York City every year once they are released, and an increasing number of them end up in homeless shelters, according to an investigation by New York One. 4 years ago, 2,152 parolees went directly to shelters, but by last year, the number had nearly doubled to 4,122. More than half of the parolees released in New York City, according to cable news station. Christopher Kaminsky is one of them. He told New York One he has struggled with heroin addiction since he was a teen, and that living in the Brooklyn Atlantic Armory shelter in Crown Heights did not help him stay clean. Quote, he heard another shelter resident say that he had a bag on sale for $6, unquote, said New York One political reporter Courtney Gross. And quote, and that's what sent him into a relapse, unquote. The State Corrections Department counts that the population is fluid and that there are about 1,600 parolees are in a city homeless shelter at any given time, according to New York One. The parolees make up a substantial proportion of the city's homeless population. The Mays Management Report said that 19,800 single adults entered into the shelter system in 2017. Wow.
And you know what? In most cases, the only option for someone who is released from prison or jails, who doesn't have the family support, are the county and borough homeless shelters. Mm-hmm. And these homeless shelters are not equipped to deal with people in general who have addiction problems, and they are specifically not equipped to deal with people who are formerly incarcerated. Mm-hmm. It's like taking someone who was formerly incarcerated and has lived in a monastery for XYZ amount of years and then dumping them into the worst place in an urban city with drugs and violence. And a lot of people, because I've dealt with this homeless situation in Poughkeepsie for quite some time, and a lot of people in Poughkeepsie would rather sleep on the streets in the cold or in the parks when it's warm than to go into the shelter system. That's how deplorable these systems are. But when we talk about the reentry population, there needs to be safe, drug-free reentry residentials for these men and women who are coming home. And that's one of the projects that Hudson Valley Reentry Network has on the board. That's one of our primary projects to establish the first one in Poughkeepsie, and we are on track with that. So, there's a need for that, Mike, a big need.
There is, man. And it's been out there for a long time. Go ahead, Eddie.
I saw the need firsthand.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I saw the need firsthand when I came home. I might have mentioned it the last time, but for several years I was told I was going to come out, be at a shelter, and get housing. That was not the case when I came out. When I came out, I saw the conditions of the place that I was just being picked up from. As I opened up the door to go to this one area to get picked up, the stench that came out of the room was so horrifying, you didn't even want to be a part of it. And I said to myself, I just came home today, And tonight I'm going to some place that can create such fear in a person that they don't want to go there. The idea of going there and saying if you don't show up at 6 o'clock, you'll be living on the street. If no one's telling you these things, you don't know them. So from the time that you leave from the penitentiary to you getting home, you're not getting that information. If it wasn't for my friend and my son being with me, I wouldn't have been able to been driven around from place to place to get this information intact. So the first night that I happened to go to the shelter, as bad as it was made up in my mind, the narrative that I was telling myself, God said, "Be still, my son. I got something for you." And I let y'all know last week, my first meal was a chicken dinner. The food was good, but the idea of having to live in this place for 120 days before I got housing was something that I didn't want to have to evaluate in my head or even live with. The second night, as I was there, I just saw a little bit more that was going on, which allowed me to know that this can't happen. I don't want to stay here. This is not an environment that I want to be in.
What are some of the things that you saw, Eddie?
Well, some of the things I saw was the fact that you had 60 people in the small area. You were double bunked with about 6 double bunks in a small living area. Men and women were in the same building. Now I understand that's being separated. The fact that there's no breathing space in there because you're not supposed to be smoking. Then you have people smoking. Thank God that I didn't see any drugs or any of that stuff going on. But I'm sure if I was there long enough, I'd have saw all that. And for the 2 days that I was there and I happened to just be able to, by the grace of God, to live with friends as of right now up to this point, the thing that I see on today is continuously seeing those same people, as I mentioned, on the street that were there when I was there. So I don't know if there's a way for them to get off it or if it's a way for them they like staying there. But I do know, as Ernest mentioned, guys coming out of prison, out of the penitentiary, need a safe and healthy environment that's drug-free and safe if they're not going to come back to prison. Fortunately, I had a network of friends and family that didn't allow that to happen for me, even though I was being told something different before I got there.
Wow. Those are realities, man. I'm saying, I thank God that I didn't have to go through that, you know what I'm saying, man. But I know so many good brothers, you know what I'm saying, who suffer through that. You know what I mean? And like you, they didn't never a good report about the shelter. Right? Never a good report.
Never said anything good about it.
How many guys you heard? I don't know, because I met 2 guys. When they gave them the parole date to parole them, they refused to go home on parole. He said, "No, I'm not going home on parole." I thought the guy was crazy when he told me that. You know what I'm saying? But he said, "Man," he said, "Listen." In fact, they had released him and put him in shelter, and he told me, "I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back." And they brought him back. First of all, they thought he was crazy. "Are you serious?" He said, "Yeah, I'm not." He said, "Listen, man, bring me back and let me max out." You know what I'm saying, man. I'm saying, I don't know what kind of sentence he had, but they wound up. I think they wound up releasing him later. They brought him back for about 4 months and wound up releasing him. I said, "You went through that?" He said, "Yeah, man." He said, "Mike, you don't understand, man, until you go through that shelter, man. See, especially New York City shelter. He said, they're the worst ones." And I'm just so glad I didn't have to deal with that, man.
And that goes right back to what Michelle Alexander was saying: disposable people, taking away their dignity and self-worth, because that's what these shelters do.
Yeah.
And the other
That's
thing
a fact.
about the shelter experience, you have to get out of the shelter at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
7 o'clock in the morning.
Come back 7 o'clock at night, right?
6 o'clock at night to be picked up. So you're out all day on the street. Rain, sleet, snow. You got to find a place to stay. During Christmas time, I was going to work with Ernest. And as I was there, I would get there a little early and I would go to Dunkin' Donuts. And one morning it was a snowstorm and I'm sitting there, and it's about Christmas time. I'm sitting there with my coffee and donut, and I see these people come in, and I know who they are because I was there with them.
They came from the bus.
Yeah. Shelter.
And they sat there and they were sitting there, were talking, and this is what they were saying. They were saying, "We are all that we got. There are people complaining about this, they're complaining about that, but I just want you to know that we're all that we got." And that's what they were saying in a little clump of circle. And they were seeing a shooting that happened on TV, and they said, "Look at that. That's not us. We're able to live another day." So in the midst of the muck and mire that they see, they're holding on to creating dignity for themselves. Creating dignity for themselves. And, I don't have much, but I knew this. I knew I had to give a little something. And you feel good when you can just give the little you got to somebody who doesn't have anything. It was great to see that because it was a husband and a wife. There was another couple here. There was some other guys. There was about 7 of them talking about we're the only thing we got. They were standing outside the Dunkin' Donuts. Then they all came and sat in the Dunkin' Donuts to get warm. Yeah, so that entire environment is deplorable. And once again, I don't know how much of it is a choice for those who've been there a while, but I do know this. It's not a place for guys that are coming out of doing lengthy sentences
that's right, man.
to be there, to have to go through that and navigate that environment.
I see that, and that's what I mean by for all its emphasis on reentry and the structure and infrastructure is not in place for that. You know what I'm saying? Just the simplest of it. So to the extent that the state is serious about reentry can be seen it can be evidence to the extent that they have a structure in place for it. You know what I'm saying? An infrastructure. We don't see that because how is a shelter part of a reentry?
No programming.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
It's not contextual.
Yeah. It's not part of reentry. It's just, okay, your time is up. Get out of here. You go fend for yourself. Reentry begins from the time a person is incarcerated, reentry integration, the preparation toward that, to the time he's released. So the very fact that the belly of the beast regurgitates, like Jonah in the belly of the beast, regurgitates you back on the land. And now you got to fend for yourself. You're in
And
the
your
shelter.
clothes.
Yeah.
Acidy clothes.
Yeah, you know. You know what I mean? So the state don't seem to be serious. And to me, if they're not serious about reentry like that, then neither are they serious about public safety. Because to the extent that you reduce recidivism rate, you know what I'm saying, or to the extent that you demonstrate that you are really committed to a successful reentry, you know what I'm saying, because the idea is to transition back into society, you know what I'm saying, after serving these kind of times in prison, make it as smooth as possible. You know what I mean? And that's, as we know, that's a delicate process. So if you, at the end of a person's sentence, you know he's done a long time, so he lost his families, relationships have been broken that can't be repaired for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Some of the people have died, you know what I'm saying? After they do 3 and 4 decades, and you throw them in the shelter?
For me,
It's like a contradiction.
yeah, I love the idea of the Hudson Valley Reentry Network because with that premise that Ernest is presenting to the public, our responsibility of being out is to teach people how to treat us. Oftentimes, they don't know our needs. They don't know what direction we need to go to. So they need people to navigate them, to help them to provide the things that are necessary for people to get out. Sometimes a cookie cutter thing doesn't fit everybody. We have to mold it to each individual needs. But for those of us who are out and can see the need, foot running, because every time I was contacting agencies, I just knew I had a plan. I just knew it was together, and all of a sudden, I got word. There's nothing. There's nothing. That was the illusion in my head that there was something, but there was nothing.
That reminded me when Kanemu came home. Remember, for all his years, I'm not going to mention the organization name, you know what I'm saying, but they promised him a job. We got a job for you because he was working for them for years in prison,
Yes.
right? Rather he was in Sing Sing, or rather he was in Fishkill. Both, he was working for more like 20 years, am I right? At least 20 years for them. And when he came out, that didn't bear fruition.
And the bad part about it, the worst part about it was that the people that blocked him were people who were inside with him that got in the position and was able to say yes or no to his getting a job there. That was the worst part.
That brother, listen, you was hit with him, I was with him. We saw how committed he was to this particular organization. You know what I'm saying? And not only the organization, but the work at hand that he was doing. You know, he every fiber of his being went into that. That was his life, man. He was come out, that was what he was going to do. Okay, I was doing this in here for 20 years. So I'm going to do that when I get out. You know what I'm saying? So remember what I always say, man, disillusionment is the prerequisite to growth. Disillusionment is the prerequisite to growth. You know what I'm saying? Because once you're delusion, now that's out the way. Now let's reconstruct reality.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So that
I'm glad you had me to understand that.
Yes. Let's reconstruct reality. You know?
So Ed,
Yeah,
tell us about the first 6 months.
Well, it's still a dream. I'm still pinching myself. I'm waking up in the morning and asking, is this for real? And I know it is. The opportunity to get up and go to work and make some little bit of money so I can put away in the bank says a whole lot. But the thing that got me to this point, to understanding where I had to be, was to be humble in the midst of it all. Realizing I couldn't run without crawling first. Realizing I couldn't crawl until I sat back and tried to develop a plan, listen to the people who were advising me. And there were many, many people that were in my corner offering me this. I'm talking about good things. I'm talking about work. I'm talking about opportunities to work, opportunities to speak, opportunities to do the things that keep someone healthy. And the two gentlemen in this room right now, Ernest and Mike, were two of those gentlemen who were in my corner the entire time. I got consultation from them. And in doing so, it allowed me to realize that things are going to come, but they're going to come at their own time. Don't try to rush it. The mere fact that I was getting up 5 o'clock in the morning, getting on a bus at 6:45, coming to Poughkeepsie just gave me a regiment and discipline what I needed to do. And in the midst of doing that, I was going to look for work. I was going to look for other opportunities to speak. I was going to look to develop relationships. And Mike said I needed to do some volunteer work. Ernest told me I need to do some volunteer work, not to get my name out there to be anybody, but to realize that I'm serious about helping the community and doing the service to the community. And once people saw that, they would be willing to help down the line. And opportunity after opportunity was developed for me to see.
Yes.
The idea of opportunity was the fact that I wouldn't think this was all the Holy Grail and said, I got it now. I realized that after this opportunity, there's going to be another one that I need to make sure that I honor the people that I'm working with, honor the people and circumstances that I'm doing, and hold a job as best I could,
Yes.
and honoring God in the entire process.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So lifting them chairs and those tables to volunteer for those events, setting up food and serving food, and going behind one thing to do another, taking out garbage, bringing in garbage cans, dumping the garbage cans,
Yes, sir.
helping the people with these things, calming down people in the midst of when they think they're losing their mind over stuff. That is a gift for me to have because I did all that type of work in the inside.
What did that do for you, serving like that out here?
Well, serving out here like that was a humbling experience, and it made me realize that's all it's worth. Because in that service, you're going to get more than what you're going to give.
It's hard for people to really believe that. You know, the Bible says that, but it's hard for people to really buy into that idea. That when Jesus said it's more blessed to give than to
Yes.
receive.
Yes.
So you find that in the process of you giving, you find it more rewarding than if you was receiving.
And it was quite apparent when we did the second show for you, Mike, when we set up for the second
The
show.
Christmas,
The Christmas.
Yeah, the Christmas one.
Mike, I was just coming off my first honeymoon, and Mike was telling me that I had to go to help them set up for an event. Now, when I went to go set up for the event, I knew there was a group coming in called Manhattan Grace,
Yes.
but I didn't know who was part of Manhattan Grace. So I'm doing what I have to do. I'm setting up the tables, setting up the chairs, and they said there's going to be about 400 people coming in. I said, oh, my goodness. This talks about 60 tables and about 400 chairs to be brought out with about 20 people. So as I'm doing this setup, someone walks by me that looks familiar. The person that walks by me that looks familiar is a singer that I've listened to over the years. And she sings a song called He's Been Faithful. And it's one of the songs that has carried through me those 33 years in prison.
You and I both, brother.
So as I saw the person, I said, nah, that's not her. And then all of a sudden, another person walks by her that looks like her. I said, wait a minute. Could this be them or her? And then all of a sudden, I heard Mike call her name. When he called her name and they spoke for a second, I just cut through the crowd, went over to her, and introduced myself. And I explained to her, I've listened to your songs for years, and your song has carried me through for many. And that was the end of the conversation. So I didn't get a chance to see the concert because I was still busy with the food and doing what I had to do. But I was with Mike's wife afterwards, and we were talking about the woman. What's her name again?
Damaris Cardborough.
Yeah, Damaris Carborough. She sang for
Brooklyn. She was lead singing the main lead singer of the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir. So now she's just singing with the Manhattan Grace Tabernacle Choir.
and she also had been with our Daily Bread Singers.
Yeah, she has quite a few CDs,
Yes.
single CDs out. She's an international recognized
Yes.
gospel star.
So as I'm talking to Brenny and as we're cleaning up, I said, Brenny, if she's still out there, she's gonna sing the song. So we went out and found her. And Brenny went over to her and said, he would like for you to sing the song. She says, my voice. I said, don't worry about your voice, just sing the song. So she sang the song, and as she sang the song, myself, her, and Brenny just started crying about the song. After she finished singing the song, I explained to her what was going on. What I had explained to her was this simple fact, that your song had carried me through 33 years of prison, and she just broke down. She called her husband, who I had met already. So in my service to serving the community to deal what I needed to do that day by setting up the chairs and tables, God said, listen, I got a blessing for you.
And
Something you didn't understand or even see coming.
So in your attempt to, well, not in your attempt, but in your blessing others, you was blessed even more.
Immensely. And what took place after that, they told me to come to the church. They want me to come to the church to speak to the congregation about the experiences that we have in life. So in our short time of giving, God will give us back over tenfold.
That's a fact, man. That's why the principle is more joyful, is more blessed to give than to receive. That's a fact, man. You know what? I think because we was created to serve.
Yes.
That's the reality. We was created to serve. So when we deviate from that and we begin to live these self-serving, narcissistic lives, you know what I'm saying? It sabotage that experience because we
Self-sabotage.
Yeah,
is the word you use.
self-sabotage.
I like that
yeah,
word you
yeah.
use.
It's a self-sabotage. Thank you, brother, for reminding me. It's self-sabotaging because you never get a chance to experience what you're talking about.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So as we learn to serve, because we live in a society where it's about the cult of personality. It's all about the me, myself, and I. You know what I'm saying? And that seems to become quite conventional on many levels in a society. So here you come after doing all that time, and you're availing yourself as a servant just to be a blessing to somebody. And you was in good company, brother, because there was corporate servant going on that day.
Yes, there
You know what I'm
was.
saying? So you was part. Everybody was doing their part.
That's
They was moving
right.
around, everybody was working together, doing their part, just like the body of Christ, like the Bible talk about. So you was doing your part, not knowing that now because of your obedience, because this is what you decided to do, that God had a bigger blessing for you. And if we could learn to live lives like that, by just watching out for others, if we could get to that place where we do exactly what Paul said in his letter to the Philippians, to esteem others better than ourselves, then we would know joy untold.
Untold.
But because we have hijacked these crippling notions of humanity, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Misplaced and bogus as they are, you know what I'm saying? So many people never get a chance to experience what you're talking about.
Never.
They might get a glimpse of it in other people's lives, but they never get a chance to experience it for themselves. And that how long did that carry you, man? You remember how long that experience carried you?
How long
It happened in
carried?
December, yeah. You had the experience with Damaris. You know, how long did that experience carry you?
It's still carrying me.
See?
It's never going to go away because I love the song. We're going to go there and sing the song and play it.
We might need have to. You know what? You might need to pull that up so we can. That song we're talking about.
Yeah, the song that we listened to in your office?
He's been faithful, yes.
Yeah. So the brothers can see what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
He's been faithful.
Yeah, man, that song is powerful, man. And she doesn't have the voice to sing on that level no more. You know, but she did it for you, didn't she?
Oh, listen, I don't care how she sang it. She sang it. We were there and we just broke down. The pastor came over and talked to me. Her husband came over and talked to me. The pastor's wife came over and talked to me.
That was a moment in time, man.
Yes, it was.
That was a moment in time that was pregnant with so much wondrous feelings. You know what I'm saying? Such inspiration. It was such an inspiration. Let me tell you, man, living in times that people need to be inspired. Because people are dealing with some stuff. People are carrying some things. You know what I'm saying? So when we come out of prison, doing the kind of time that we deal with, you know what I'm saying, we need to know that how faithful God has been to us. And here's a song by Manhattan Grace with Damaris lead singing. So brothers, really check this out. It's called
In my moments of fear, through every pain, every tear, there is a God who's been faithful to me. When my strength was all gone, when my heart had no song, still in love, He's proved faithful to me. Every word He's promised is true. What I thought was impossible, I've seen my God do. He's been faithful, faithful to me. Looking back, His love and mercy I see. Although in my heart I have questioned, even failed to believe, yet He's been faithful, faithful to me. When my heart looked away, the many times I could not pray, still my God, He was faithful to me. Oh, the days I spent so selfishly, reaching out for what pleased me. Even then, God was faithful to me. Every time I come back to Him, He is waiting with open arms, and I see once again. He's been faithful, faithful to me. Looking back, His love and mercy I see. Although in my heart I have questioned, even failed to believe, yet He's been
What a testimony. What a powerful testimony. And Damaris sang that song with such conviction. like she's telling her story through the song. But she not only told her story, she told our story, brother.
Told our story, spoke our truth.
Yeah, man, that God was more faithful to us than we was to him. And though we wasn't always as faithful as we would have liked to been or as he would have liked us to have been, he never was faithful in loving us and carrying us and sustaining us and strengthening us and directing us and inspiring us and strength, you know what I'm saying, giving us the courage that we need to move forward.
It was that particular song because working for the chaplain, I could see videos almost any time that I wanted to on the day because there was one of our services that we did on Friday. And in doing so, that would be one that would inspire me on a daily basis. When I wanted to, when I was down and out, think about some things about the 11 parole boards and not making it home and all of those things. He's been faithful. So my service to him in the midst of all that was just saying, one day it's going to happen. One day it's going to happen. And it has. So I'm here today before you.
Man, you live in fits of joy, from what I can tell, brother. Every time I see you, man, it's like your smile is wrapping the back of your neck. I can see you from behind smiling. You know, man, and I'm so happy for you, brother. You know
Thank
what I'm
you.
saying, man, because you never gave up, brother.
Couldn't.
You know, you always, even behind the wall, like me, and we said two weeks ago in the last show, me and Ernst, that we never seen you in a bad way. You know what I'm saying? That you was always a brother, man, who, like, joy was your mantra. You know what I'm saying, man? And, because, you know, in prison, you meet guys who go to church, and they say they Christians and all that, or whatever they might identify themselves as being, and you don't see evidence of that. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, we was around brothers who lived what they talked about, man. We had the
Yes,
we had the
sir.
privilege of being in that circle of men of God, you know what I mean, who was learning, who was growing, and who was committed to showing their faith and their love towards others, to being the light, that little light that shine into the world. I'm saying, you know, prison is a dark place. It's a place, man, where men become casualties. I'm not talking about physical casualties. First, they become psychological casualties, and then ultimately, sometimes a physical casualty. Prison become an extension of their interior reality. And when prison becomes an extension of your inner reality, man, you basically can say that you're done.
True.
And we've seen what happened, the tragedies of what happened to men like that. And it could have very easily happened to us. Very easily, man. But before God, there we go. That he brought us through and he brought us out. And he was faithful.
Faithful.
He was faithful, man. So I thank Damaris for singing a song like that that's touched so many lives all around the world. You know what I'm saying? And definitely that song went beyond prison walls to minister to us and ourselves. You can see us in our cells with our headphones on, you know what I'm saying, and the lights out, you know what I'm saying, breaking down, you know what I'm saying, as she's ministering to our heart, because we know this is the love of a God, man, that we can't conceptualize that love. We can't do nothing about it. All we can do is accept it by faith, because it's a love that the human mind is not adequately, anatomically designed to wrap itself around or deal with. You know what I'm saying? So the best you can do is accept it, and if you truly accept it, then there's evidence by you passing it on to others.
There's no doubt about that. When it's passed on, you know you have it.
Yeah,
How they gonna know who we are? But the love that we show to one another.
Amen. That's right. They know you're my disciples by the love that you show to one another, man. So, and to let you know, if this Damaris, as if she has been so faithful. In fact, remember you watching that preaching that she was preaching recently? Remember we was looking at that together, and she was saying how she struggled when she first, because she always wanted to be a star. She said, so she was singing worldly music, and she wanted to do her thing. It was all about her. But when she became a Christian, a believer, then she simply wanted to sing to glorify God, and her faithfulness has allowed God to use her in powerful ways. So the question is, God, I know that God is no respecter of persons, right?
Right.
So anyone who's faithful to Him, He's going to use that and multiply that in ways that you can't even begin to imagine.
Can't imagine.
You know, and I think that I thank God for that, man. Let's move on to something else. I don't know if you brothers knew, but the 29th of last month marked 50 years since the Kerner Commission report was released. Y'all remember that? The Kerner Commission report?
28th.
The 28th, right? Okay, I don't know why I got the 29th. Yeah, I thought that's what it was too.
28th in February.
February 28th. That's right, 1968 to be exact. You're right. But for some reason, my paper here says 29, but I know it's 28th. You're right. That's a fact.
But it could have had a leap year.
Okay. Troublemaker. So listen, right? So for those who don't know, this was a report that was warning America, two Americas, one separate and unequal. So President Johnson's National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders, it was appointed in July 1967. He issued its report on February 28th. The commission warned that the nation is moving toward two societies, one black and one white, separate and unequal. This, in a phrase that stirred controversy, the commission cited that white racism as the underlying cause of urban riots. Noting the deplorable conditions of the ghetto, the commission laid the major blame on whites. Well, white Americans have never fully understood, I'm quoting it, well, white Americans have never fully understood, but what the Negro can never forget is that white society is deeply implicated in the ghetto. White institutions created it, white institutions maintain it, and white society condones it, unquote. The most bitter fruits of white racism, said the commission, were the exclusion of Negroes from benefits of economic progress because of discrimination, the concentration of Negroes in the city's ghettos, and the inevitable failure of black youths who have been deprived of opportunity. The report called for a sustained and massive national commitment to action and advocated sweeping reforms in law enforcement, welfare, employment, housing, education, and the news media. We haven't really made that much progress if you think about it. The commission argued that the unprecedented cost of such reform could and must be met because there is no higher priority or higher claim on the national conscience. The 11-member commission headed by Illinois Governor Arthur Kerner had been appointed after the riots in the summer of 1967 to answer three basic questions. Here's the questions. What happened? Why did it happen? What can be done to prevent it from happening again? So think about it. What happened? The commission reviewed 164 disorders of major and minor proportions and found no typical riots or evidence of conspiracy, because they were saying they thought it was a conspiracy. It was the communists was putting it together, or maybe the red. They was blaming everybody except themselves. You know what I'm saying? Rather, the commission concluded that riots grew out of mounting tensions, and that in rioting, Negroes were striking out against white symbols of authority and property. We see that in some of the recent riots we see within the last 20, 30 years, right? Discrimination in law enforcement, employment, and housing were the most pervasive grievances. Most persons injured or killed in riots were Negroes, and property damage was greatly exaggerated in original estimates. Militant agitators and brutality by police and National Guardsmen simply aggravated the disturbances. That's what happened. So why did it happen? Well, the commission declared that while the causes of riots were complex and interrelated, the fundamental reason was the racial attitude and behavior of white Americans towards black Americans, unwhite. The commission detailed the economic depression of the ghetto and its inhabitants, which has resulted from discrimination and segregation in education, employment, and housing. To many Negroes, the commission stated, the police have come to symbolize white power, white racism, and white repression. The general climate of the ghetto leads to hopelessness and a belief that change can come only through violence. So what can be done? So we already looked at what happened and why did it happen. Now we want to look at what would be done. Before I go further, are you aware that there was a report released last month by the Center of Investigating Reporting called Kept Out? What Kept Out is about redlining. Redlining means that these banks was significantly approving white applicants while significantly disapproving black. Okay. It's systemic and it's staggering. You got to get the report. I meant to bring it in, but I printed it. But you got to read it.
Okay, well,
it calls a bombshell. It's a bombshell report.
Well, then it'll be a follow up on what you're talking about now. It's good information you brought in.
Yeah, this legitimizes it. Remember, this is talking about 1960. This is 1968. Right. This was said. So here we are in 2018. Sound like we're reading a report that's for today.
Right. So I'm not that familiar with it. Matter of fact, I'm not familiar with it at all.
Yes.
But so what you're saying is that this Turner report was written in the aftermath of the Watts riot
well,
as an
actually,
explanation?
It was like more than 30 riots that took place in 1967. We know about Watts.
Chicago, New York.
yeah, and L.A. But
So-
there was a total of 31.
So this is a report to explain the origins and the reason why the natives was restless, so to speak.
Nice term. I like that. Nice term. Yes,
Okay, cool. This
yes.
is interesting because this is new stuff for me.
Okay, so I wrote about this a few years ago too. I liked it, but after I got, because I had the book. The book, you can get it in a book form, the report. So the commission, what can be done? The commission presented more than 150 recommendations based on 3 fundamental principles. The first principle is that programs must be on a scale equal to the problem. Listen to that, brothers. Programs that's going to be established must be on a scale that's equal to the problem.
That's COINTEL.
So I wanted you. No, that's not what they meant when they said that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's not what they meant. They say, in other words, if you're going to solve this, this is what you can do. Come up with programs that must be on the scale equal to the problem.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Like jobs and stuff like
So
that.
I want to let you know that when Lyndon B. Johnson issued this, when the report came out, guess what? He never said nothing about it. There's a lot of this is very controversial. A lot of white people felt there was being scapegoat. You know what I'm saying? This is not us. You know what I'm saying? Black people felt liberated. They were saying this is what we've been telling y'all for the longest.
Right.
But yeah, remember this commission is predominantly a white commission.
Right.
And they just told the truth, brother. Let me finish reading it. So the programs must be on a scale equal to the problem. Number 2, programs must aim for great and immediate impact to close the gap between promises and deeds. In other words, all the things you said you're going to do it. Don't just promise you're going to do this, do it. And number 3, new initiatives and experiments must be undertaken. You see, the recommendations called for a creation of 2 million jobs in the next 3 years, increased efforts to end school segregation, substantial funding of educational programs, reform of the welfare system, substantial emphasis on low-income housing, improved police-community relations. See, that hasn't improved at all, right?
None.
Improved police, might got worse. Improved police-community relations and better training of police for riot control and greater attention by the press to the needs of Negro communities, including the training of Negro journalists. Reaction to the report was mixed. President Lyndon Johnson never endorsed the basic findings of the report, nor did any of the presidential candidates selected by the major party conventions, although some presidential hopefuls, including the late Senator Robert F. Kennedy and Senator Eugene McCarthy and Governor Nelson A. Rockefeller, publicly endorsed many of its recommendations. The charge of white racism found favor among most civil rights leaders, whites as well as black, but caused considerable resentment among some critics who saw the issue as an attempt to find a scapegoat and to produce guilt feelings on white Americans. So after the race riots erupted in more than 30 cities across the United States during the summer of 1967, President Lyndon Johnson appointed this commission to investigate what caused them. The commission, headed by the former governor, as I told you what his name was, Kearney Commission. So is it not ironic that we're in an age 50 years later where we still find ourselves confronted and dealing with the same things?
It's not strange that we're still in this condition based on what Michelle Alexander said. Michelle Alexander specifically and clearly stated that capitalism needs people like this.
Yeah.
Capitalism creates an underclass that has to be in place so that capitalism can continue to exist. And that's why nothing has changed, because this underclass that is the fodder for capitalism has to maintain itself so that we could live, or that the haves can live the life that they continue to live. It's necessary in our system. And that's why nothing has changed, because clearly that report is right on point.
Yeah.
So it's no mystery as to how you can prevent the underclass from feeling disenfranchised, prevent the underclass from feeling that crime is a viable option. All of these things could have been avoided 50 some odd years ago with this report if they have just taken the initiative to change.
That's a fact. Frustrated hopes are the residual of the unfulfilled expectations aroused by the great judicial and legislative victories of the civil rights movement and the dramatic struggle for equal rights in the South. A climate that tends toward approval and encouragement of violence as a form of protest has been created by white terrorism directed against nonviolent protests, by the open defiance of law and federal authority by state and local officials resisting desegregation, and by some protest groups engaging in civil rights disobedience who turn their backs on nonviolence, go beyond constitutionally protected rights of petition and free assembly, and resort to violence to attempt to compel alteration of laws and policies with which they disagree. So we can't fix what we can't face. And that's another thing that Michelle was talking about. Remember she said the denial of people who are having the privilege of the white privilege of their skin, the social political privileges of being white in America, denying it, can't face it, always justify, explain it, or mitigate it, or gloss over it in some kind of way, because the very moment that they can face that, I'm saying maybe change can happen. At the same time, I'm also reminded that when you deal with racism and if you're really going to deconstruct this animal, I can vent my spleen and feel better, but it doesn't really tend to help solve anything. If anything, it's like trying to put out fire with gasoline. You know what I mean? And that's what Martin Luther King, he would not retaliate. I'm saying, see, we like Malcolm X, because Malcolm X, what he says is it resonates with our masculinity, by any means necessary. And you have the images in your mind of him standing with the AK, some kind of AK, right? By the window,
looking out the window,
looking out for the enemy. But we know the one he was really looking at, if you think about it, the enemy he was looking for was the one that was after him, was going to be a black enemy.
Right.
Let's keep that in perspective. You know, people ain't thinking about that. When you see that picture, at that point in time, his house had been firebombed. You know what I'm saying? So he's on point.
He's protecting his family.
Yeah, he's protecting his family.
Right.
And it was black men, you know what I'm saying, who felt that he had betrayed Elijah Muhammad. You know what I'm saying, there was some sympathies of Elijah Muhammad, and felt like, you betrayed, man. This is a man that raised you. You know what I'm saying, you betrayed. You're supposed to keep that to yourself. You're not supposed to be sharing all our problems, our dirty laundry, in the open like that. So when we see that image in our mind of the AK, because he was protecting his family.
Yeah, but when you look at Malcolm and Martin, you look at the fire and the velvet glove,
and the dream and the nightmare.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'd rather just say like the fire. That's a good analogy too.
They wrote a book named that. James H. Cone called The Dream and the Nightmare. But he compared they used Malcolm X.
The two ideologies.
Malcolm X is two paradigms.
Right.
That was necessary. Mm-hmm. He said it's two paradigms that are necessary.
Right. But when you look at the engine from both ideologies, Malcolm was like, by any means necessary, let's take this by violence. Mm-hmm. Violence was met with COINTEL, and J. Edgar Hoover, through the COINTEL program, snuffed out those movements that moved in violence.
Yes.
Whereas Martin Luther King came on a more intellectual ideology, because he outthought them. Outthinking them meant that he said, I'm going to show America, I'm going to show everybody how wrong you are by you doing what you do to us in private on a public stage.
Yeah, how morbidly hypocritical you are. Because you're talking about being a world democracy, you know what I'm saying, and respecting all people's rights. And look how you treat your citizens, your black citizens.
Right. And how we're going to approach it through legal channels, which was, when you look at the two, Martin Luther King's approach was successful. It was successful, but just like you said, the denial still exists. But the denial still exists because the intelligentsia of the American politics are dictating through the media what is and what's not.
That's a fact.
So that's why people don't have the real story. That's why people are still being taught how to think. Because people don't think independently. I always say that people are like cattle. They don't have independent thoughts. They look at the TV and then they form their opinion just like that. I think that if you want to form your opinion, you look at both sides. You look at CNN, and then you look at Fox News, and then you can make your determination.
Yes, sir. Well said, Ernest.
Hey, yeah, no. So I actually want to take from the from you say like a third person perspective,
Yes,
like
yeah, come on,
society,
come on.
cattle. So I mean, even though I'm in college and you guys were in college, you kind of saw the party scene, but in my generation especially, they say every generation gets dumber and dumber, and I hate
Yeah.
to say it, but it's kind of the case because when my generation, especially now, they've with this social media outlet stuff, it's become okay. Like, what's the way to go? What's the quote unquote most popular way to get out there, be cool and stuff? And the problem is that
Yeah.
what, when you look at these people, and specifically my generation, we really have no brain thought. Like, we have no intellectual okay, this is how we should act and this is the way we're going to be. Like, I see videos on social media all the time. Oh, I see this person drinking, smashing like bottles over their head. Yeah, like, let's go have fun. Like, and it's a chain reaction every time because these social media outlets also, even before like back in like Martin Luther King's time,
sir.
like, you would be like, okay, like this is the way that, our society should believe and think. But now, like with this generation, social media outlets, like they really push for a lot of negative stuff. And honestly, you know what? I stay out of that because I've always wanted in my life to be quote unquote different. So when people say, oh, you want to be different, what do you mean different? Like I don't want to be the cattle. I don't want to be the herd that follows that one specific group. I like to be third eye bird's view because when you really do step out for a second, you say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to act like them. I'm not going to be like them. I'm going to say, okay, let's see how it's like, I guess a domino effect. When one person does it, oh, they think it's cool. Let me do that again. I watch and I say, this is really dumb. Like I said, even in 2 weekends ago in the show, my sister has these social outlets, social medias. They promote, oh, you got to be really beautiful. You got to get, I hate to say the word, like caked up. That's what all the girls do in my generation too.
Caked
They
up,
get,
you call it? Wow, I never heard that term. Caked up,
and they get like they throw makeup on to the point where it's like
Like
what?
mannequins, looking like mannequins, right?
Yes, actually, exactly. They look like mannequins. It's like okay, like what is the point of you? Like, I mean, even when I talk to women, like I'm like, oh hey, yada yada, but I still see like they throw like glitter on their face and this and that. I'm like, I even say to them sometimes, like like I don't mind the makeup, but like at times, like I've had previous girlfriends who've thrown makeup on their faces nonstop to the point where it's just I'm like, I say to myself, I'm like, what are you doing? I say to myself, I'm like, babe, like you can't do stuff like that. Like if you want to be comfortable around me, stop doing that. Like I understand you try to look cute and stuff for other people, but like, the purpose of me dating you is to make sure that you're yourself. And I don't care if anyone else judges you, but the problem is that within society, my generation is like 20 times the amount of like cattle in a herd that's following others. Like we follow the Kardashians, you follow all these popular public figures, except when I watch like these drama channels or news channels, like I see the level of, and God forbid for me to say this, but this level of stupidity that really shows like who these people truly are. And the problem is that going back to MLK's time and really showing them and being more intellectual and not maybe the word masculine, but more standing on their own 2 feet. This generation doesn't know how to stand on its own 2 feet. And I've honestly had at times in my life where I didn't know how to stand on my own 2 feet because my mom would always be like kind of like hurtling around me. And my dad always told her at times like, Francine, you have to stop doing that. The kid's not going to know how to be on his own 2 feet. And to be honest, though, I'm not going to lie, high school, middle school, somewhat of college, I really suffered hard because of the fact that my mom didn't make me kind of stand on my own 2 feet. She gave me guidance. I tried to be my own type of herd and cattle because I realized that, the parent role, especially within society, has fallen because kids are being neglectful. The generation currently, this one, my sister, I mean, always been taught to be respectful to people. Like, I don't want to be those people who are like, no, I have to disrespect, women especially, which we had talking about on the last show. And I just say like, like me disrespecting women, that's not the cattle or the herd that I want to follow. We got to be our own people and say, you know what, you got to know when enough's enough. Like, that's what we all have to say to ourselves. Yes. But yeah, so basically that's all I have to say.
That's good. You said a lot, man. But remember when you said how your generation looked for was popular?
Correct.
Well, Martin Luther King addressed that. He said, vanity asks the question, is it popular? Politics asks the question, is it expedient? Conscience asks the question, is it right? See the difference?
Yeah.
Vanity is concerned with what's popular. Politics is concerned with what's expedient. And, of course, conscience is concerned with what's right. You know, so it's like confronted with the kind of challenges we are today. I think we kind of failed our generation. We failed your generation. You know what I'm saying, man? It's not all on y'all. You know, on some level, we failed. We failed to pass on the baton effectively to our children. You know what I'm saying, so they could pass it on to their children.
Yeah, no, and then, you know, that's the thing that I just look at a lot is because, you know, like, I do ask myself, like, oh, especially my sister's generation, like that part of the generation, I feel like a lot of parents have really, really dropped the, I guess, what's the word you can say, the ball. They really dropped the ball with that because, you know what? Like I said, my sister has an iPhone 8. Like, that thing is massively huge. I'm always giving my privileges to my sister.
Bigger than this one, too, huh?
I've had the 6S for a year, maybe 2. Like, literally. And I'm just like, you know, because my sister, you know, wants to fit in. She wants all these privileges, quote unquote. I mean, so does every child of any race, color, ethnicity. Like, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, like, sorry. But, you know, we have to say to, like, parents, even when I have a kid one day, I want to sit down with my wife and say, you know, like, this is not what I want to give my kids. Like, I hate to say it, I'm very old-fashioned, and I will always be that way, no matter how futuristic technology gets, because kids don't even go outside anymore. Like, my sister goes out here, but they get so privileged.
Crazy. We couldn't wait to get it. We couldn't wait to get outside when we get back from school.
Honestly, let me tell you something. They always get driven around. My sister's friends, they always get driven around everywhere they go. Me, I had to walk. 6 blocks at times just to get to my other friend's house. Like, even though 6 blocks isn't that far, but on 90+ degree weather, sometimes in the summer, I'd be dying and jumping. Like, I'd be like jumping right in the pool. Be like, yeah, man, sorry, I had to cool myself off. Like, I mean, my sister gets so many privileges. And listen, as a brother, I would want that no matter if she had a job, you know, a boyfriend, you know, whatever the case is, I want her to have the life, obviously, that I wish sometimes I gave myself. But I mean, thankfully, I am in college to the point where I am succeeding. Of course, sometimes I get, you know, anxious, nervous. But within my generation, there are just kids who I've seen, they dropped out of college now. And sadly, like I said, one of my high school classmates, who I was pretty good with, had passed away from drugs, you know, because the drugs within our society, we do these DARE programs. We do these, what is the one in Chicago that they do? It's Snug, I think it is.
It's a drug program?
Yeah, it's like,
no,
it's like
Snug.
DARE.
No, it's not Snug.
Well, I'm forgetting what, I've heard of it before, but I'm forgetting the name. So, you know, we teach our kids, okay, well, drugs are bad. This is what happens, this and that. We have to show graphic pictures. Visualization sometimes in our generation is not enough anymore. Like, it's like, what do you have to do? Like, do you actually have to live that experience to where you have to have that culture shock? It's like, wow, like, I've been in this case now. Now I know to never do it again. So it's like, it's shocking that we have to really push it to, like, the point where it's like, we just all can't wake up as a society and say enough's enough.
You know what I think, Mike? I think that it takes courage to live a well-adjusted and a very authentic life.
Right.
Because so many people, man, they prostitute themselves just to be accepted by other people. You know, the power of peer pressure. But for you to resolve to live a well-adjusted, a wholesome, and authentic life takes courage. And look what these authors in the book called The Courage of Champion, Nina Losowitz and Mary Beth Salmon, said that courage can be a form of tenaciousness, a refusal to quit because you're tired, hurt, or humiliated, or emotionally broken. Courage is the ability to face what life throws in your path on a daily basis. Yeah. And some people can't do that, so what they do is we medicate ourselves with a lot of excessive fun. You know what I'm saying? Rather with our little toys, you know what I'm saying, the iPhones, our computers, you know what I'm saying? We get so many ways to distract ourselves, and those distractions are a form of medication. They're not the kind of medication that cure. They're just like anesthesia.
Like subsiding?
They're like anesthesia. They just numb you. You know what I'm saying? Keep you comfortably numb. You know what I'm saying? So you ain't got to be forced, that you're not forced to muster the wherewithal to deal with those particular challenges in front of you. And when you don't resolve to deal with those challenges, guess what? There's a time when your challenges will come and deal with you. You know, and thank you very much. There's a time when those challenges that you fail to deal with, they're going to come and deal with you. It's haunting like.
Right.
So in other words, either you deal with the problem or the problem is going to deal with you.
Right.
You know, and the problem for me is people who no longer know how to be true to themselves, or how to be or understand the purpose for which they was created. You know what I'm saying, and nothing wrong with that, because a lot of us don't know the purpose, but at least be on the journey to finding or to relocating or locating your purpose.
Right. And, you know, it's actually funny because I do want to speak on two major things that I think that I study on very hard. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
So that, you know, for those who don't know what that is like ways to help reutilize or refix some things within yourself.
Restructure your cognitive.
Gotcha. Yes, 100%. It's like the mental, physical, and an emotional perspective. So it's kind of like for people who don't, I guess, if I'm saying it wrong, it's kind of like reworking how you look upon things in your life. Like, instead of doing this, try this way instead. Like, I think it's those for people who don't really know how to make that change, or I think they're just really stuck in one pattern to the point where, you know, your subconscious, especially because the subconscious is the second part that I do want to talk about and say the subconscious uses 90% of your brain, the conscious uses 10%. Some people say 95 subconscious. Some people
some people say 5%, and then they say there's 5% for the preconscious.
Yeah.
Which is a thin line between the conscious and the subconscious.
Right.
I guess it depends what model of psychology, but we get the idea what you're saying.
You know, and that's the thing. I think, like, you know, because I don't like a lot of things that my subconscious has been taught over the years like from when I was young.
We're going to stop you for a minute, Mike, because we're going to a station identification break, and then we're going to come back and finish. But remember what you said, when I was young, that's how you're going to come back with. All right?
Gotcha.
This is WBKR, Voices Beyond the Wall. Voices Beyond the Wall. We're still on pause. This is Voices Beyond the Wall, Prison Talk Radio, WVKR 91.3 FM. You got Michael Love and Ernest Hendry. I'm his co-host. And we're riding today with Eddie Williams and our brother Mike. Mike, I keep forgetting your last name.
It's De Niro.
That's De Niro, that's right. Well, I got to forget that. Yeah, so we got Michael De Niro in the house with us as well.
Though you may not drive